podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's Only a Game podcast with hosts Jimmy, Greg, Deg and Matt. Sat in the main stand, bringing football topics with occasional guests. Download, subscribe and stream for a hat-trick of support. Tap in ratings and reviews on your podcast platform. Stay on side with our YouTube channel and social media pages.
Hi, it's Jimmy here. Just giving some Euro 2024 predictions. It is not long upon us now. I'm recording as it is on the 13th of June, the day before the opening fixture between Germany and Scotland. And just going to give my thoughts on some of the groups and eventual winners. I'm not going to do the whole knockout branch. It's far too complicated to work out what's going on with best third place teams and all that kind of stuff, because as for those of you who may have heard of me on the 90s Grumble, this format is stupid. Bring back the 16-team tournament. I'm still not over it, and it's 8 years later. Besides the point, I think we've got to focus on the tournament that is now, look forward. And Group A, obviously for those, we all know the groups, but we'll go through them. Group A, Germany, Scotland, Hungary and Switzerland. I think a lot's been made of Scotland prior to the tournament, obviously for the fact that it's a big occasion to have them back at what feels like more of a proper Euros. No respect to Euro 2020, of course. We wouldn't be saying it was an improper Euros if England won. But obviously it was in one country. We're out the other side of the pandemic. Scotland can go and enjoy being a more of a tournament feel rather than a game at Wembley and 2 games at Hampden. I think if Scotland can draw tomorrow night in the opening game at Germany, they'll get through this group. Scotland's biggest asset is the fact that they can hold anyone to a draw on their day. They could hold some of the best teams in Europe, which I think Germany are. Despite poor recent form, they've got, for me, the best manager at the tournament in Julian Nagelsmann, the Germans, and obviously home advantage, and obviously brilliant footballers. It's the Germans. But if Scotland can hold them to a draw, they get through this group, because I think if you can draw with Germany, they'll have enough to beat either Hungary or Switzerland, and I'm leaning towards them maybe beating Switzerland, as they did in 1996, of course. I still think the Germans top this group, although people are looking at Hungary as dark horses for the tournament, which is crazy, really. It's the more the methodical Magyars and the magnificent Magyars of the 1950s. Under Marco Rossi, the Hungarians have been in fantastic form. They've got obviously Dominik Szoboszlai as the real story, the real big world-class player in their team. Let's not forget as well, they've got Barnsley's Callum Styles, who plays them due to his Hungarian grandparent, which I think is a great story. I think Germany win this group, but like I say, I think Hungary do get out of this group, and I think Scotland could potentially be one of the best third-place teams. A draw with Germany and potentially beating Switzerland. Again, maybe that's optimistic, but I don't want to be following the trend of pessimism that seems to be rolling around Scotland now. It was all amazing at the start of the qualifying campaign, beating Spain and pissing off Rodri with the way they played. Till now, where it's been slightly more laboured and a bit poorer form going into the tournament. I think Scotland, I want to be a positive about Scotland. I don't want to put them down. I think they'll be okay. I mean, again, they could come anywhere from second to fourth in this group, which I know is not a massive shout. I hope they get through. It'll be the first time through in a group stage of a major tournament ever, which would be incredible for them. But then part of me thinks as well, are they going to get spanked 5-0 against Germany, and that's going to set the tone for them? I would not be surprised to see either. Regarding the games between Scotland, Hungary and Switzerland, overall, you could tell me any scoreline between any three of those teams in any of those fixtures, and I'll believe you. So it's a tough one, but I think Germany make it through. I think Hungary make it through. I think Scotland might make it through. I don't fancy Switzerland. I know that sounds mad when they've got Granit Xhaka, who's had the season's life at Bayer Leverkusen, and they've got some fantastic players. I don't know. Switzerland just shows one of those nations that are kind of always there. But apart from knocking out the French in the last Euros, I never really remember them doing much at major tournaments. They're kind of always there. They sometimes spawn in the last 16 of a tournament, but I don't know. Personally, I don't fancy them. Again, that's not an expert opinion, far from it. I am not an expert, you know that. I just have a feeling about them. But anyway, we'll move on to Group B, where Spain, Croatia, Italy, Albania. I think the Spanish are one of the strongest sides this tournament. Again, we might overlook them because they're not at the level they were from 2008 to 2012. But I defy any national team to ever be at that level for a long, long time. They were dominant. They were probably the greatest national team ever. Certainly in my lifetime, the age of nearly 34, the greatest I've seen, without question. The Italians, there's the talk, they've not got a lot of fronts, they've not got a lot of solidity at the back. I still think you underestimate the Italians at your peril in any tournament. I think they're always capable of being solid, of being dogged, of being horrible to play against. And I fancy, Spain, Italy will be obviously it's a standout game in any competition. They seem to play each other in every single Euros at the moment. It'll be a hell of a fixture always. I still think Spain, Italy go through. I think Italy have got enough about them to get out this group. Then we get to Croatia and Albania, where Albania I have no idea about. It sounds to me from what they got out of a relatively poor group with Poland and Czechia in qualifying. And it was defensively pretty solid, but then they weren't coming up against particularly amazing teams and then would rely on scoring absolute worldies to get them through the group. As group winners, to their credit, Albania, even with the expanded tournament, it's their second ever appearance at a major tournament since Euro 2016. They're here on absolute merit for winning their group. But can that translate when they're switching it up from playing Poland, Czechia and some of the minnows of Europe in the qualifying to then having to come up against the experience of Spain and Croatia and the real, solidity of Italy? I don't know. The thing is, they could be brilliant. They could beat Italy. They could beat Croatia, which I'll get onto. I still, hand on heart, think that Albania may drop out in the groups. And Croatia, I am tipping to be a bit of a flop, and that's horrible to say because I really have loved the Croatia team now for what feels like many, many years. I know they've had their battles of England. I know they've broken our hearts on a few occasions, obviously 2007 with the Euro qualification there. World Cup 2018 semi-final. But you can't help but admire a country of 4 million people producing the team that they have over the last 15 years. Obviously, Luka Modric is a standout still. But I think that's the point, is that for amazing as Modric and Perisic and Brozovic is now playing in Saudi and so many great players, it feels like almost, I know this is not true, but it feels like this Croatia team has just been the same Croatia team that it was since about 2008, which I know is obviously not true. And I just think the legs in midfield, for as good as those players are technically, and they read the game like very few in the world do, and they seem to just grind it out, they're not particularly brilliant in, how to put it, in necessarily taking the game to teams. And I think Spain will know how to deal with them. They've played them and beaten them in the last few tournaments. I think Italy will probably have too much for them. And I don't know, again, this Albanian side could be horrible to play against. All these teams, it's a group of death, isn't it? All these teams sound absolutely horrible to play against. I don't know, I think we're only going to get 2 teams out of this group. And I know that sounds mad in a group where 3 sides look really strong and one maybe not so much, that you'd think even the third place team would have enough to get through. I don't know. I think Croatia and Albania might both drop out this group. I think maybe Croatia might flop. I hope I'm wrong. I like Croatia. They're a great nation. They've always been a really good team. But just something about this group tells me that Spain probably will be too strong for the rest of them, and Italy will just have enough to come in second. Group C, it's England's group, and I'm going to put it out there. England will frustrate us English people this tournament. It's going to be another... It's not going to be oh wow, we've gone and smashed, like a round 6-2 in the group stage, or, it's going to be a really frustrating group stage. I think we'll have enough to get through. Whether we win the group, I don't know. But I think we should have enough to just see through the group. Slovenia, Denmark, Serbia. People are low on Denmark at the moment, including the Danish public. I still think they've got more about them than people are suggesting. I think Denmark is going to be one hell of a tricky match. I know they underperformed at the 2022 World Cup, coming below Australia, Tunisia and France in their group there. I still think the Danes will be right up for it against us and against, obviously, Serbia and Slovenia. I think, I mean, you've got Højlund, you've still got Eriksen, I believe, you've got, a really good smattering of top talent from across the top leagues and some really, really tricky players that England defensively don't look that great. The centre midfield, we don't know what it's going to look like. And it may just appear a bit disjointed. And I fear that's how it's going to look in this tournament with England, is we might be looking to go so attacking, but it's just going to look disjointed and expose us at the back potentially. Slovenia are... Their main is Jan Oblak's their keeper, who I think is one of their main players. So I think it's quite good when you've got a smaller nation, with no disrespect meant to Slovenia, but a smaller, less fancied nation that doesn't always qualify the tournaments. When one of your star players is a goalkeeper, I think that actually is quite a good thing, because at least then you've got a wall to get clean sheets or to concede less. They could be, again, any of these teams could be tricky, and you're going to hear a theme about this throughout our predictions. Serbia and Slovenia, I think we should just maybe have enough to see them. Although a draw against Serbia in the opening game wouldn't shock me, because Serbia are big, they're nasty, they're physical, and that's just the fans. I would dread to be, I think it's in Cologne, isn't it, when we play Serbia? I would dread to be there that night as an England fan, because their fans are going to be gunning for us. I think the Serbia game is going to be a horrible watch. I think we probably just have enough to beat Slovenia. I think maybe 5 points. A draw with Denmark, I think 5 points is going to be enough to maybe come second. We don't know what the other results will be. Do I fancy Serbia or Slovenia to go through? Possibly, but maybe in third place. And I think Denmark might win the group, because I think they'll get a win against Serbia or Slovenia. I think they'll get enough points, or maybe just outscore us. Who knows? But obviously, I hope England prove me wrong and smash the groups and go on from there. So England to go through, Denmark to go through, Serbia or Slovenia maybe, but it's going to be a horrible watch, I think, this group stage for England fans. If you're expecting to waltz through this group, I would maybe think again about that. Group D, Poland. Straight away, I'm going to say Poland are going to be probably the worst performing team in this competition. They got through a playoff against through the Nations League route, which again I don't necessarily agree with. Why you deserve to qualify via the Nations League, which is a separate tournament, I don't know. After coming below Albania and Czechia in their group, which again, as I've alluded to, wasn't the strongest qualification group. Lewandowski's getting older, he's coming deeper and deeper. You've not got like Mati Cash in the squad. Look, they've got Zielinski, they've got some good players. Arkadiusz Milik's now injured to Poland. I just don't fancy them. Wojciech Szczesny, obviously, is a really good keeper, still going. I just don't fancy this Poland team at all. Like, even before you see the rest of the group, you go, I just think there's an old feel about this Poland team. There's a staleness to them. They got through the group in the World Cup by beating Mexico in the final game, but there was not a lot about them that really made you think they stood a chance against France in the last 16, and so it proved. And I think now, they knocked out Wales on penalties, and this is not a vintage Wales team. This is a Wales team that lacked Bale, Ramsey, and some of the more superstar players of the past. So my worry there for Poland is that they're just going to be the worst performing team in the competition, and that's because they've got a really handy Dutch side, a really good young Dutch team, which I don't think's there yet, but potential's certainly there. You've obviously got your Van Dijks, your Gakpo's, your Ake's. You've got top players there, as well as a lot of other players that are coming through at a really good final, that PSV team. And obviously De Jong at Barcelona. You've got a lot of talent there. Dutch are always going to be a good side. And obviously France. I think we can all safely say that most of us are tipping France to go deep in this competition. It's amazing they're not outright favourites with the squad they've got, and with the experience of making World Cup finals and going deep in the Euros and all these things. And obviously Mbappe, probably one of the best players in the world right now. Probably the best individual player in the tournament. Obviously, other players may debate that. I think France win the group. I want to talk a bit about Austria. I don't think we know many of their players. They're missing some key players or some bigger names that maybe have either retired from international football or just aren't available. Probably the highest, most well-known name is Marcel Sabitzer, formerly of Dortmund now, formerly of Bayern, Leipzig and Man United. But Ralf Rangnick's got a really good, almost like a club feel to Austria. that they've beaten some of the big nations in the Nations League and in the qualification. I think they came top of the qualification group. A lot of the Red Bull players have come through Salzburg and Leipzig, where Rangnick has coached and had a big impact on those clubs through the Red Bull model. And it's showing now that Austria are probably, along with Hungary, the real dark horses, the real, they might go all the way. I don't think they will, but I do think they come second in this group. I think the French, the Austrians and the Dutch all beat Poland, and I think that's enough to see them all through. And, Austria really, I think I agree with what pundits and everyone's saying, that Austria really are one to look out for. But again, with Austria, with Hungary, let's not forget that Turkey were the dark horses typical Euro2020, and they were the worst performing team in the competition, went out with 0 points, and I think they may have scored 1 goal, if that, and they were dreadful. So you always take these things with a pinch of salt. Group E, it's the Belgium, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine group. On the face of it, you look at Dominic Tedesco's Belgium, with obviously still Lukaku, De Bruyne, Jeremy Doku, who's now part of the team, Leandro Trossard, and you think, yeah, they should have enough, but I don't know, there's something, again, a bit like England, where you look at the players and go, yeah, okay, but there still feels something a little bit disjointed about this team. Or it feels like a bit like maybe Croatia or some other nations that we may come on to, that they're kind of in transition between a younger generation coming through, the Dokus of this world, and some of the older guys that, no Courtois there anymore. He fell out with Tedesco, and obviously now the real old guard of Vincent Kompany retired, obviously, is now a manager, and I think Vertonghen's out, Alderweireld's out, as in they were in the squad but injured, and you think if you're still relying on Vertonghen and Alderweireld as your defensive sort of players at this stage, when arguably the peak of this Belgian team was 10 years ago, I'd be concerned that for as good a players as they've got, again, like with the 2022 World Cup, that it might not click. I hope Lukaku has a good tournament. I've always got a soft spot for Romelu from his Everton days. But I think they'll be usurped by Ukraine, who have got a lot of reasons to give it. I mean, every nation's got every reason to give it everything in this tournament. But we all know the situation with Ukraine. We all know they haven't been able to play a home game for a long, long time. We all know the problems they're facing outside of football. Yes, they may have come through, I think, the Nations League path to get here, knocking out Iceland in the final. I can't remember who else they played, but at the same time, you've got, two of the mainstays of the big shine lights of the Girona team that came third, including Artem Dovbyk, who's Pachichi in La Liga this season. You've got Zinchenko, who's a really good leader for Arsenal, and for Ukraine, you've got Mikalenko, who's not had the worst season ever, and he's been very much improving. You've got Lunin, who's the backup keeper at Real Madrid, but he's also as good enough to start as well. You've got forget the guy's name at Shakhtar now. There's a few Shakhtar players, and obviously Mudryk, who he's one of those players that I feel like he will turn it on for Ukraine because he'll fit the system more than he maybe does at Chelsea. And he's got, he's not got that pressure of being £100 million, whatever his player. I think Ukraine are one to watch for so many reasons in the competition. I'll be personally backing them in this group to win the group. I think Belgium will come second, despite the struggles, and Slovakia and Romania, I don't know enough about them. Romania particularly hold a real nostalgia for me. They always seem to be in the Euros. I never quite know, did they win their group? I can't remember now. I'm sure somebody will look it up for me. Romania always seem to have that kind of nostalgic kind of feeling of a 90s, 2000s nation. Remember England played them in 98 and then in 2000, and we always lost to them. And they had that great team of Hadji and Popescu and guys like that, and Petrescu, and you're thinking, oh yeah, but this isn't that team. You've got the centre-half at Tottenham, whose name escapes me. Not Vlad Kirikez, that was about 10 years ago. And I think there's Yanis Hadji, who used to play for Rangers, but not a lot is known. I don't doubt they've probably got some good young talent coming through. I don't know if them or Slovakia are going to have enough, and it may be a shootout between those two, not literally in their fixture, which I think is the final game. Who can get a win might sneak in a best place, third place team. But I think you look at Belgium and Ukraine, and then realistically, I don't think the other two will be strong enough to get through. Now, the final group, last time's dark horses Turkey are back, and they topped the group with Croatia and Wales in. So, and they've got Arda Güler, from Real Madrid, who is going to be, for me, a young player I'm looking forward to seeing. You got Turkey, Georgia, Portugal, Czechia. Turkey, for me, will be massively improved. And let's not forget the impact that this is being played in Germany. Now, you might think, what's that got to do with anything? Well, a lot of you will know there's a massive Turkish population in Germany. Obviously, there's been former German internationals such as Özil and Şahin. I think Şahin played for Germany. He may have played for Turkey, actually, apologies. But German-Turkish influence is there. There's a lot of Turkish immigrants in Germany. Turkey will have a huge support, as will a lot of nations, but a huge support in Germany from German-based Turkish fans and Turkish diaspora. And that will play a part. And Turkish fans are incredibly passionate. They are, incredibly vocal. They are unbelievable. Obviously I'll be careful how much I say because it has spoiled out into very unsavoury and tragic incidents in the past. That's all I'm going to say on that. But on the whole, I think Turkey could do really, really well. I think they come out of this group. I don't think they win it, but I think they come out of the group. Czechia, formerly known as Czech Republic, it's taken me a little while to get used to calling them Czechia because it sounds like Chechnya, which is something entirely different. I don't know about them. They've still got the likes of Patrick Schick in there, who I think was joint top scorer at the Euros last time. I could be wrong on that one as well. But I still don't know about Czechia. I don't think they've got enough about them. Like I say, they came below Albania in the qualifying group. I know that qualifying counts for nothing in terms of, so long as you qualify, it doesn't matter where you finish or how you get there, because the tournament happens on a completely different set of circumstances, different squads, different everything. I don't know about Czechia, to be perfectly honest with you. And then Georgia, what do you make of Georgia? They've got a really good keeper, whose name I can't remember nor pronounce. And I know they've got Kvicha Kvaratskhelia of Napoli, who is the star man. It's their first ever time in a major tournament. Fair play to them. They beat the former champions Greece on penalties in Tbilisi. There have been, I've heard, things said that if the game had taken place in Athens or Piraeus, the Greeks would have won that night. Say what you will, though, it took place in Tbilisi. The Georgians beat the Greeks on penalties. The former champions didn't qualify. By the way, Greece v Turkey and Dortmund would have been absolute scenes. But Georgia are here. Say what you will about the fact that they were the worst performing team in qualifying. So qualified, I think they only got, 8 points, 9 points maybe. They didn't do particularly great. Obviously, they got in through their Nations League path, knocking out, I believe, Luxembourg before Greece. I mean, an improved Luxembourg side, let's put it that way. It's not a stellar way to go through. It's not exactly like they've not really beaten anyone brilliant to get here or faced up against anyone brilliant to get here. But that means very little. But I still think that in experience, I get a feeling a bit like I would have done with Latvia in 2004, who knocked out somewhat coincidentally Turkey over 2 legs of the playoff, whereby they're made up to be there. It's their first appearance at the tournament. It may not be their last, of course, and I hope for Georgia it isn't. But I still feel at the moment there's that inexperience there. I'm not saying they're a poor side. They're obviously not. They're a good team. They're here on merit based on the 2014 tournament and the qualification. I do think, given the fact they've got to play Turkey and Portugal, that's a big ask. They might get a result against Czechia. They might even get a win against Czechia. But I think Portugal beat them. I think Turkey beat them. I think Georgia and Czechia go out in the groups. I'm not entirely sure now if I've tipped enough third place teams to go through. But like I said, I'm not predicting the full tree of what happens in the knockout rounds. Portugal, I think they win the group. And we will get on to them. Speaking of Portugal, I mean, look at their depth. Look at the depth. Look at the players they've got. Look at the system they have. And I think they were very, very reserved under Fernando Santos. They won the Euros in 2016, but that was almost despite the manager. When you don't win a game, apart from the semi-final in normal time, you spawn a few penalty shootouts and draw through group games against Hungary, Iceland and someone else who I've forgotten now. It may have even been the Czechs again. I can't remember. I mean, that was not great. And it made a mockery of this tournament format, to be honest. And I hope we don't end up with a similar situation again with whoever wins it, that they just blag their way through with draws and goalless draws and penalty shootouts and just really turgid football. I don't think we're going to see that from Portugal. Roberto Martinez is the manager, and I think he's got a much better Portugal squad now than he ever had at Belgium. Maybe not, man for man. Maybe Belgium have better defenders than maybe the Portuguese have got. Questionable, obviously, when you've got guys like Ruben Diaz, who is brilliant. But look at how Martinez wants to play. He will take the shackles off the attacking element of this Portugal team. Don't get me wrong, he can't organise a defence to save his life. But he may not need to in a weird way, as in, obviously he will, but this lot could just go out there and attack teams, and certainly the group would just blitz teams from the start with the attacking talent they've got, the Bernardo Silvas, the Rafael Leao, even an ageing Cristiano Ronaldo. His experience and his confidence and his belief in the Portuguese players will rub off on the rest of the squad. Even if he's not playing, he's a really good ambassador. I will say that about him, he's a good ambassador for his team. Even if he wants it to all be about himself, potentially still, he will still be able to provide a lot of experience, a lot of know-how to the less experienced players. But when you've got Bruno Fernandes still there, you've got so many, I can't even think of them all now. Gonçalo Ramos, of course, at PSG. You've got so many great attacking players. I think that might be the way forward. The way that teams are tactically trying to play more sort of possession-based football and that kind of style now, or they'll want to play ultra-defensive, a la potentially Georgia or other nations that are maybe lesser fancied. Portugal will find a way to break those teams down, I feel, and I think that ties into my eventual winner, who I believe is Portugal. I think, for what I've said, I think Portugal will win the tournament, and it may be against maybe France or Germany in the final. I don't quite know how it works out with the whole who plays who, depending on who wins what group. What odds Portugal gets the final against the host Germany and win it 2 times in 3 editions against the host of the final? They're my tip to win it. I think Portugal, I hope England win it, obviously, but I think it's Portugal. Anyway, appreciate it. It's been a long voice note. Thanks very much for listening, guys. Remember to subscribe to It's Only a Game, and regardless of how your nation does, if they even qualified, remember, it's only a game.
It's Only a Game podcast with hosts Jimmy, Greg, Deg and Matt. Sat in the main stand, bringing football topics with occasional guests. Download, subscribe and stream for a hat-trick of support. Tap in ratings and reviews on your podcast platform. Stay on side with our YouTube channel and social media pages.
Sports Social Podcast Network.